Hi friends, it's time for the week ahead tarot reading for July 7th to July 13th, 2025. We do have quite a bit of astrological transits happening this week. Starting on July 7th, Uranus will be moving into Gemini. Uranus is in a sign for about 8 years. It dips in and out with like retrogrades and things like that, but from July 7th until the end of May, basically, of 2033, Uranus will predominantly be in Gemini, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. Then on July 10th, we have the full moon in Capricorn. I was getting some downloads about that earlier today, just like even in my own readings for myself, and I'm just getting that something to do for this full moon, kind of in preparation for this full moon, is to go back and look at what intentions you set in the last Capricorn new moon. So I didn't actually look up when this was, but we had Capricorn season would have been when the Capricorn new moon was. So the end of December into January would have been when the new moon is. You can check when that was, but I'm just getting that like you should look and see what seeds you had planted, ideas you had planted, intentions you had set, and kind of do a check-in on like, are those things actually ready to harvest? Okay, and that's like a really big thing for you for this full moon. And then on July 12th, Saturn will be retrograding in Aries, so it will join Neptune that's already retrograding in Aries. And don't really freak out about these retrogrades, okay, because these are outer planet retrogrades. So the outer planets are going to have more like global or like outer world impacts, the less personal impacts. Now, if you are ruled by Saturn, maybe like you're a Capricorn rising or an Aquarius rising, or if you're ruled by Neptune, so you're a Pisces rising, then these things might have more of an effect on you. You can also look in your natal chart and like if when you were born Neptune was in retrograde, you might actually feel like it's more of a natural state for you, or when you were born Saturn was in retrograde, it might feel like it's more of a natural state for you. But it actually does feel better for us to not have all the planets moving in the forward direction at the same time. That can actually feel like a lot of energy. It can feel kind of intense, and that's what was happening for a while, besides Pluto being in retrograde. Pluto spends almost half the year retrograde, so that kind of, we don't necessarily like feel that difference so much. But yeah, it's not a bad thing to have a lot of planets retrograde, especially the outer planets retrograde, and you are likely to have at least one of them retrograde in your birth chart too. So I wouldn't stress about this. It is more of like a global energy thing, or like the societal energy, if you will. But we're going to focus more on kind of like the personal energy and what you need to know and understand in terms of that in this week ahead. So let's take a look. Thank you, Spirit. What does this group need to understand, this collective need to understand for this week ahead for July 7th to July 13th? More on the personal level. What can they expect? What do they need to know or understand for July 7th to 13th, 2025? Thank you, Spirit, for July 7th to July 13th, 2025. What does this group need to know, expect, understand? Thank you, Spirit. So one thing actually, okay. So I feel like this is actually related to that full moon, the Capricorn full moon. And like I was saying, like intentions that you would maybe set. And I think that there's going to be some things that you're going to realize, like you set intentions and it didn't work out. And I think that there's a part of you that needs to kind of come to terms with that. And there's some grief around that. And you can use this full moon to release that grief, the Five of Cups, of things not coming to fruition that you had hoped. And at the same time, recognizing that, sometimes we set intentions and we don't get what we thought that we wanted because it actually wasn't really what was truly aligned for us. And so I think it's also a call for you with the Seven of Wands to ask yourself, what is it that you're truly trying to fight for? What are you standing for? What do you believe in? Some of this does actually relate into the external world also, especially with like just all the political upheaval and events that are going to be happening and going to be continuing to happen. I think it is important for you to know what you stand for and what you believe in, and maybe some of the things that you had set intentions for, they just didn't align. And I think that you have to come to terms with the Five of Wands. Like there's reasons why some of those things didn't happen. While you might have planted a good seed, or you might have planted the seeds, but not every seed is going to grow, and there's certain reasons for that. But I'm still seeing, oh my gosh, you guys, 10 of Stars and 10 of Cups on the bottom of the deck, which to me is saying like the right seeds are going to turn into the trees. So if you planted some seeds and those seeds just didn't grow, they're not ready, maybe they're not ready to harvest, or they just didn't grow. They didn't grow for a reason. And you can mourn that to some extent, but also in a way, almost like, I think there's a sense of finding appreciation that the seeds that you had tried to plant. It's so interesting also realizing, because like I set up my table every day differently with different crystals, and for the first time in quite some time I decided to put this crystal on the table, this selenite, which is related to the moon for sure, and then it is the tree of life. And yeah, I don't put this on the table that often, but I did today. I'll put it back. And yeah, and then seeing these cards, right? It's like the right things are going to grow for you, and things that it's like you had to work so, like you shouldn't have to work so immensely hard fighting like barricade after barricade and obstacle after obstacle in order to have something that's actually really aligned for you. When something is aligned, it's gonna come in. Now, does that mean that you don't have to fight at all for something? Like, no, you're gonna have to stand up for things that you believe in. You're gonna have to like do some work and put effort in, of course. But it's not supposed to be so freaking hard. Okay, it's not supposed to be something where you have to lose all the other things in your life in order to have this one thing. It shouldn't be like that. It's supposed to be very content. 10-10 coming forward also, okay? 5-7-5, 5-7-5, 10-10. So maybe those are signs that come forward for you that you see this week as well, to just remind you of this message, okay? But I feel like ultimately it's like almost a reevaluation week of like, where do you want to go? What do you want? Because you can have it, but you have to make sure you're choosing it with the right people and in ways that are aligned with you, okay? And I think that's, you know, if you're wanting this like 10 of Cups life with somebody that you feel like you have to constantly prove yourself to, or people that you constantly have to prove yourself to, like they don't appreciate you, they don't recognize your gifts, your talents, you're just like always having to like prove your worth to them, that's not the right person, and there's a reason why it's not working out, okay? Thank you, Spirit. And that could be friends, that could be family, and that could be romantic relationships, that could be at work. It could be in any area of your life, because the 10 of Stars and 10 of Cups encompass all areas of life. Even though they look like family and love, it is actually all areas of life that they are talking about, that abundance and that like joy and happiness and peace, okay, and ease. All right, thank you, Spirit. What else does this collective need to know for this week ahead, July 7th to July 13th? Ace of Wands. That's Aries energy. There's an Ace of Crystals, new beginnings. Okay, new beginnings, especially when it comes to maybe something related to your finances, King of Stars. Okay, so maybe you're getting new inspiration, new ideas coming to you. This very much could come from Uranus moving into Gemini, and also even the retrogrades. Like the retrogrades, again, aren't necessarily a bad thing. So the retrogrades can, especially with Neptune going retrograde, in Aries, which that happened on the 4th. Neptune retrograding makes it so that Neptune isn't as like powerful in a way, right? It's kind of like it's taking more of a back seat. And so sometimes we think of retrogrades as bad because we think especially like Mercury retrograde, and we're so scared when Mercury's retrograde, like all these problems that might happen. But that's not necessarily the case with all the other retrogrades, okay? It's just based on what the different planets rule. But Neptune can be a planet of delusion. It can be a planet of like too much fantasy. When it's retrograding, you might actually be able to see things more clearly. Okay, so maybe this is actually a way where you can see inspiration that's going to actually pan out for you. And especially with Uranus going into Gemini. So let's talk a little bit about Uranus going into Gemini. Okay, so with Uranus is like the planet of shock, chaos, surprise, change, revolution. It's very future oriented. It can be very unexpected things. It brings about change, like Uranus would hate the saying, we do it because that's the way it's always been done. Uranus is like, no. Okay, so it is looking to do things, and it's not shaking things up just for the sake of shaking things up. It's shaking things up because it's like something needs to change. Sometimes it can change in a way that like it brings out a lot of chaos in order to get to that greater change. But a lot of the changes we need, right? So like revolution is scary. There's, we can have there could be violence related to that. And at the end, maybe it ends up being better, right? So with Uranus and Gemini, most likely some of the things that we can expect to see happening is that we'll have new ways of communicating coming. I'm thinking of like, maybe there's going to be, you know, like years ago, texting wasn't the most common way that we would communicate, right? It's like something like that, where it's almost like the way that you communicate on a more like regular basis is some new technology might come forward, like FaceTiming would have been an example of that, right? A new genre of music is something else that I was getting. I'd already got, sat with this energy for a while and tried to like see what I was thinking was coming through. So new genre of music might become like more popular. Definitely more of like outside of the box thinking, right? That idea, like I said, of like, this is how it's always been done. Like, we don't care about that. Just because it's always been done that way does not mean that it's the best way to do something. And like coming up with new creative solutions, that's a very positive thing. I also think there's going to be a lot more attention on conspiracy theories, and some of those conspiracies are going to come to light as being real, but there's going to be some of this like sometimes challenge of like knowing, is it a conspiracy theory or is it real? Now, I will say with Neptune going retrograde in Aries, we will find out that some things that we thought were like conspiracy theories were real. Okay, there's gonna also just be lots of ideas coming forward and just like disruption of the status quo. So that can be really good things, and maybe for you that's going to be related, and especially in terms of your career, how you make money, because I do see this King of Stars as well. So new ideas, new inspiration, and maybe how you make money is shifting, something totally different, totally unexpected, but unexpected doesn't necessarily have to mean bad. Okay, it can be something that is totally shaking up the way that you had been existing, though. With the Temperance card, it's almost like you were at like a balanced place, or like a stabilized place, and this is like shaking things up but bringing you to a new level of stability. So maybe you had like plateaued in how much you had been earning, or plateaued in like what your career was, and it's like shaking things up, and it's gonna like take you to a whole nother level. That's actually, you can achieve this balance again, but it's like you got to shake it up to like get to the next new level. That's kind of what I'm getting around this, and then that can be Uranus and Gemini energy for a while, right? So Uranus will be in Gemini from July 7th to November 6th. Then it will retrograde starting on November 7th. Until April 24th. It will be in Taurus, and then it's gonna move back into Gemini in April of 2026, and then it'll be in Gemini for a long time, all the way until 2032. It'll pop into Cancer, then we'll retrograde back into Gemini again. So yeah, we're gonna be in Gemini for quite some time, but this first round of Uranus being in Gemini is until November 6th. So we have 90 days to, no, a little more than that, July to November, that's 4 months. So we have 120 days to get used to this energy, I guess, and then it'll dip back into Taurus for a little bit. Okay, so let's just see if there's anything else that you need to know. Anything else for this week ahead? 6 of Cups. I'm also just getting maybe a reunion, a friend reunion, okay, is what I'm getting. It does seem like a friendship reunion. So maybe you get in touch with somebody. Maybe this is also like an unexpected communication that's coming in. I don't think that this is an ex. This feels very friendship, and it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel dysregulating. It feels like it's very regulating, okay? So it just feels like and maybe this is you getting the idea that you want to communicate with an old friend. That's what I'm very much getting. So it might even be self-driven, because I actually do see the self card on the bottom of the deck too. So if there's somebody that you're like, oh my God, I haven't talked to so-and-so in a while, and like they're just on your mind, maybe this is your sign to like go ahead and reach out to them for whatever reason. Again, a friend, not an ex. A friend. This is pure friend energy is what I'm getting with this 6 of Cups. So yeah, maybe there's like some reason that you are getting this information, like this reason that like you have to reach out to them for some reason. Maybe they actually like will really need to hear from you. So just another little message for you. Let me know how this plays out for you. Let me also know if you're still enjoying these week ahead readings. I'm kind of trying to think about whether this is the right thing for me to continue to be doing as well, but I appreciate you being here, and I will either see you next week or some other time in the future.